Good morning, Algebra 1B. I am going to start with the first lesson in Odyssey, where graphing systems of equations. This should be the first lesson in the first unit. So the lesson highlights the objectives, determine the solution set of a linear system graphically, and determine if a point is a solution of a system of linear equations. So it starts you off with some vocabulary: consistent, dependent, inconsistent, independent, and no solution. Really, the ones that you really want to kind of pay the most attention to are going to be consistent, inconsistent, and what they call equivalent, which is not a part of this list. So a consistent set of equations is going to be when you graph two different equations and they cross at a point. Okay, so you see we have these two equations here and they cross at this point. They have this point that's shared. That's a consistent set of equations. We sometimes call this a set of equations as one solution because it has one place where it crosses. An inconsistent set of solutions is going to be parallel lines. These equations are basically never going to cross each other because they are parallel. Okay, and what they call equivalent is going to be when you have the exact same line graphed twice. So what this means is that somebody graphed the line and then somebody graphed the exact same equation right on top of it, and as you can see, those two lines have everything in common. Okay, so those are the three scenarios that you're going to be looking for. As you scroll down, they're going to give you a vocabulary matching activity to do. This you should be able to do pretty easily based off of the vocabulary above. Okay. Then as we continue, there's some explanation about the graphing that you can read and a video, which I would encourage you to watch. Okay. And then we get down to the questions. So keep in mind, my questions are different than yours. They don't have the exact same numbers and they're not in the exact same order. So I'm going to go through my questions with you just so that you kind of can get an idea of how to answer yours, but keep in mind they may not be exactly the same. Okay. So my first question says, given the following system of equations, identify the type of system, okay? And they've given us three to choose from: equivalent, inconsistent, and consistent. So remember, this is kind of what we're looking for. We're kind of looking to see, are these equations going to cross each other and be consistent? Are these equations not ever going to cross each other because they're parallel and be inconsistent? Or are they going to be the exact same line and be equivalent? Okay, because we are working from home and we don't have a lot of resources right now, I'm going to recommend that we use the free online graphing tool called Desmos together. Okay, so here is the website you're going to want to use. It's just www.desmos.com. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and type that in to my tracker. Okay, and this is what's going to come up. I'm going to go ahead and click on start graphing, okay, because what that's going to do for us is that's going to give us this ability here to graph the equations right here so we can see what they look like. Okay, now here, this is the space where I'm going to be able to type in my first equation. Just to make things easier for yourself, what I would recommend is go back to your Odysseyware, and I'm just going to copy and paste that equation right into the calculator. So I'm copying it, and then I'm going to paste it. And as soon as I do that, look what happens. It's graphed it for me. Okay, so what you can see is that since we don't have a lot of tools at home, we don't have probably graph paper and all of that, this is a great tool to use to kind of just get an idea. We have two though, so I'm gonna go ahead and click enter. That's gonna give me a space to put the second equation, and I'm gonna go back to my Odysseyware, and I'm going to highlight the second equation. And then I'm gonna go back to my Desmos, and I'm going to copy and paste it. And that gives me both of my equations. What's really nice is that they've done them in different colors, and those colors correspond with the difference. So you see this is my red one and this is my blue one. So there's my red line and my blue line. Now, what we see here are two equations, two lines that cross each other at exactly 1 point. Okay, so what does that look like most to you in terms of our 3 options? Exactly, you guys are on it. Consistent equations. Okay, so when I go back to my Odyssey where, that's how I'm going to be able to tell that I'm going to be marking consistent equations there. And I'm not allowed to mark anything because I'm in teacher view, but you would go ahead and mark consistent equations. Okay, when you want to go and do the next one, when you go back to Desmos, you'll just click these X, which will clear out the equations and clear out your calculator. Okay, so you can do that for each one. Okay, many of the questions that you have in here look like that. So the next one says, given the following system of equations, identify the type of system. So again, you're gonna put them in your Desmos, you're gonna look at what the picture looks like, and you're gonna match it up. Okay, so it looks like we have several. Okay, this one is a little different. It says solve the following system of equations graphically. So I've got these 2 equations here, and they want to know what quadrant my solution system lies in. Okay, that's a little bit of a different question because it's going to require that you remember the quadrants. Okay, so let me map that out for you. If you're looking at a graph, okay, the quadrant 1 is always right here. They mark that like this. Here's quadrant 2, here's quadrant 3, and here's quadrant 4. Okay, so if the solution set is over in this box, it would be in quadrant 1. If it's in this box, it'd be in quadrant 2. If it's in this box, quadrant 3 and quadrant 4. Okay, so we're not going to be able to tell that until we graph it. So I'm going to go back to Desmos with these 2 equations. And again, I'm just going to copy and paste them as they are because Desmos knows kind of what to do with these. We'll save you some time and headache. Okay, so I'm going to copy and paste that first one. Oh, or maybe I might have to write it out. It says x plus y minus 4 equals 0. Okay, and there's my equation. I just had to type it out there. Copying and pasting didn't work for that one. Let's see if it will let me copy and paste this one. I'm gonna go ahead and push enter to do my second one and copy and paste it. There we go. Okay, great. Now, if we back up, we can see that here's the line of the graph, right? So this would be quadrant 1, 2, 3, and 4. So when they say where does the solution lie, what they're talking about is where do these lines cross each other, right? And you can see that they cross each other here, which is going to be in quadrant 1. If we go back to my picture over here, you can see that this is quadrant 1. That's where our lines crossed each other. Okay, so for this one, as I'm looking, I'm going to say, okay, they would cross in quadrant 1. And again, it won't let me mark an answer because I'm the teacher, but when you get to your question like that, that's how you can work that one through. Okay. Now this next one wants to know what the solution set is. This little 0 with a line through it means there's no solution. That would mean that they are inconsistent. They don't cross each other, okay? These other 2 give an ordered pair. What they're giving an ordered pair of is where the 2 lines cross each other, okay? So these are my 2 equations, x equals -5 and y equals -6. So I'm gonna go back to Desmos, and I'm going to go ahead and put those equations in here. Okay, so the first one was x equals -5. And then I'm going to push enter, and then y equals 6. Let me just double check and make sure. Oh, y equals -6. Okay, let me fix that. Okay, so here you can see that I've got 2 lines, and I'm not sure if you can see quite that my 2 lines or kind of towards the bottom. Let me go ahead and make my screen a little smaller so you guys can see. That didn't work. Okay, so this red line goes with the x equals -5. It's an undefined line, and this blue line goes here. You can see kind of they cross at the bottom of my screen right there. I'm going to go ahead and just click on that point where they cross. And when I do that, Desmos actually will bring up for me the point where they cross each other. Okay, so this point where they cross each other, the point that the two lines connect, is considered my solution. Okay, so anytime they ask for a solution, what they're asking for is that point where the two lines cross. So if we go back to Odyssey where we can see that we would select -5, -6, because that's the point that those two lines crossed, okay? And again, when they said solve the following equation of systems graphically, what's the solution set? The solution set is considered where the two lines cross each other. Okay, here's a very similar question. Again, they give us two equations. They want to know which one of these is the solution set. We can do this just the way we've been doing all of them. We would take our equations. I'm going to copy and paste them into Desmos, making sure I clear out the last one that I did. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste that one, and it gave me my line. And then I'm going to go to my next one, push enter, and put that in there. Okay, so I put both of them in there, and I have my point. Now again, if you go and you highlight on that point where they crossed, if you hover over it, it will give you that exact point where those two lines cross. Okay, so then I can go back to my Odyssey where, and I know that it's going to be my first option, 2, 1. Okay, this one would be the same. This one is going to be similar. It says solve the following system of equations graphically. Select the graph that shows the correct solution. So they gave me my two equations, and then instead my multiple choice looks like pictures of the graph. Okay, you can do this the exact same way. You're just going to try to match what you see in Desmos to what you see in your multiple choice. So I'm going to copy and paste these equations, and I'm going to put them in there. And I'm going to go to my next one, copy and paste, put it in there. Okay, so this is what I have here. Now what I would do, because your picture is much bigger in Desmos and it might be harder to tell, I would just hover over that point and make sure that my point definitely matched their point as well as the picture. So kind of study this picture, take a look at it. We've got a long line going up and down. That's my x equals 1. And then we've got this line here. We're gonna try to match the picture. Okay, so this one looks very similar, and notice it has the same point where they cross, 1, 1. Let's look at the other options just to make sure. That looks different, right? You can see that this one, your line is going horizontally instead of vertically. So even though it has 1, 1, this line does not match what we just saw. And then this one definitely doesn't match because you can see that you've got two lines with a positive and a negative slope. So we would go ahead and select the first one because that matches what our graphs look like. Okay. Next one is similar. Again, they give you some equations. They want you to match it with the pictures of the graphs. You can use Desmos to do that. Now this one says, using a sheet of graph paper, solve the following system of equations graphically. Be sure to show any work, use a straight edge, being neat. When you're finished, enter the solution set in the box, and turn your graph paper to your teacher. Well, obviously you're not going to be able to do that because we're not going to be able to exchange papers during this time, but you can still give me an answer. So what you'll do is you'll go ahead and take your equations, and again, you can put them into Desmos. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste my equations. Okay, I can't copy and paste them, so I'm going to have to go ahead and type them in. So the first one is x plus y equals 0. So I'm going to go to my Desmos, and I'm going to type in x plus y equals 0 for my first one. And then my second one said x minus y plus 2 equals 0. So I'm going to go ahead and type that in. X minus y plus 2 equals 0. So I've got my picture, okay? Now, what they're looking for in the box is for you to give the point where those two lines cross. So again, if you hover over that point, it will give you that solution. So this is what you want to type in your box, -1, 1 as your solution. So you would go back to Odyssey where, and you would type in here, remember to use the parentheses, -1, comma, 1, parentheses, and that's sufficient to answer this question. I don't necessarily need you to graph it because I know that you can graph it in Desmos. I just need to see that you were able to come up with your solution. Okay. Next one, solve the following systems of equations graphically. Select the graph that shows the correct solution. Again, you can copy and paste those equations into Desmos and see which one best looks like your answer. Okay, and here it looks like we have some kind of word problem. So it says, Jerry and Katya are running a race. Jerry runs really fast for a while, then he stops to catch his breath. After he has rested, he runs fast again until the end of the race. Katya runs slower than Jerry, but runs at the same pace the whole race. In 2 or more complete sentences, explain which line on the graph models Jerry and which line models Katya. Include an explanation for the intersection point. Okay, so we know that Jerry ran really fast, rested for a while, and then kept going. Do you see how this purple line goes very steep and then flattens out and then goes very steep again? This is going to be Jerry's movement, right? He went really fast, stopped and rested, and then went again, okay? This line has a more consistent slope. You can see it just kind of keeps going a little bit slower but steady the entire time. This is going to be Katya, okay? So you can kind of use that and write your explanation. They want to know why they had a point in common. Well, as you can imagine, even though Jerry started out a lot faster, once he stopped and rested, what happened while she kept running, right? Eventually, she got to where he was and passed him, right? So this point represents the point where Katya basically passed Jerry, or she kind of advanced beyond where he was while he was resting. Okay, and that looks about it. Okay, so my questions were in different order possibly and had different numbers, but that kind of gives you an idea of how to complete graphing systems of equations. Again, using Desmos is going to be your friend during this time. Here is that website one more time. Okay, and then let me know if you guys have any questions.